welcome to the Ramble On for Zombieland Double Tap.
And let's ramble.
Let's talk.
Yeah, and so you have the family, so to speak, starting off. They've settled down in the White House, kind of go through a little montage of how their life has been, and then you have this Wichita, right? Running away.
Little Rock.
Little Rock, running away. They both actually run off.
Yeah.
Of course, leave a note, classic, throwback to the first movie, and it sort of starts the rest of the characters on this journey to go after them. And, I mentioned in the American Recut how I did rewatch the first movie a couple days ago. When was the last time, Nick, that you rewatched the movie?
Oh, God, it's been years.
See, and that's something, this is a movie where I remember watching the first film and I was like, wow, this is so funny, this is so cool.
Right.
And after rewatching it, I literally felt, I think what you described about Double Tap. It's got stupid jokes, it's not that great of a movie, but it is still fun. And then that's why I think that this second movie is sort of literally similar to the same thing. And maybe that's too much of the same thing.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
I think the first one was also kind of a product of its time. Because remember that it came out at a time where a lot of times were played very serious, very straight up.
Mm-hmm.
Walking Dead, all that fun. World War Z.
50,000 different zombie properties coming out. And this is the first movie where they kind of did a piss take on and took like the real like wacky comedy angle. Which at the time was kind of refreshing, but I think if I rewatched it, I'd probably be really disappointed.
Yeah. And I think that's kind of an interesting, we're looking sort of historically at this movie and through the rose-looking glass of like, yeah, that was a fun movie. And it's not a bad movie. I think the original one's still a fun, especially being the first one. But I do feel that this movie is essentially more of the same, and it's, I think, a question of if 10 years later that really works. And I think for, again, what you sort of, I didn't really expect anything more from this movie, and I think that sort of going in might have kind of biased my opinion now, maybe not, I'm not judging it harshly, but yeah, I think it's sort of what I expected at least.
Right, we all had low expectations. Going in, we kind of knew what we were kind of getting ourselves into, and that movie did kind of more or less meet those expectations, and I didn't hate it for that. It's just.
Yeah, I mean, let's break down the story a little bit. I think largely it is very forced.
It's very formulated.
Yeah, it's very predictable.
The entire story is kind of a if there's one thing that Zombieland needed to do was a love triangle.
Yes.
So the basic story is that Wichita and Little Rock are kind of feeling pent up. They're feeling unsure about this long-term relationship stuff, so they both break off on their own. Little Rock goes off with a guy from Berkeley who is exactly what you expect and has absolutely no redeeming traits.
Nope.
They go off to this commune that's a ways away, and then everyone else in the gang just kind of decides at once, well, we gotta go after her, and then they do a cross-country road trip to go and rescue Little Rock.
Yes.
And that's
on the journey. Movie. Yeah, on the journey they meet a couple quirky characters, and then go to their destination.
Yeah.
It's largely kind of comedy of errors, journey across the country style comedy, which there's been plenty of movies like that do that before. It's not like that's like the biggest problem with this movie.
And let's not forget meeting yourself along the journey, because they definitely seem to have met some kind of bizarro version of themselves.
Yeah,
the real treasure was the Elvis's gun we got along the way.
I think it's the classic sort of sequel. I don't know if it's problems, but sort of in a comedic sequel, what you see, lots of callbacks to the first film.
Yes.
And then building on that with, like Brenda just referenced, you have Luke Wilson and Thomas Middleditch who come in as these characters who are, of course, eerily similar and almost mirror versions of our two
Every sequel has these characters.
And it's funny. It works. It's funny. Like, we all, we get the joke. We can see sort of this, it's also these funny actors that we all know. We all, in general, people like them. They have good, when they come on screen, people are like, oh, yes. And so I think to an extent, that's what the movie. This movie doesn't necessarily need the substance per se. It's just playing off these sort of these actor dynamics.
Right, it needs good jokes.
Yes.
I agree with that, and I think that the Commandments were a pretty fun twist on that. Honestly, that whole conversation is actually really fun. Though I think that as far as the Woody Harrelson mirror, it didn't work quite as well. They weren't different enough to be fun.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
I struggle with Luke Wilson. I want to like him because he was an old school in some other movies I liked, but also he's been in some real bad shit, and he's just not that talented.
I don't know if I'd say he's not that talented. That's not for me to
judge. No, I think I don't know. I think he does a pretty good job. He does fine, yeah. I think he's in a lot of those type of characters, those character roles where
right.
But yeah, so you're essentially pulled along as we're trying to get to our destination.
Right.
There is one character who's probably going to be a permanent addition. The New York character, the one who was supposed to be hooking up with Woody Harrelson.
Yes, Nevada character. Yeah,
Nevada, God, every time.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, so, so that sort of adds some. Finally, we get this because of course you've had this Woody Harrelson lone wolf character, so eventually it's like all right.
But they bond over.
He meets someone, yeah. He meets someone
who really has the same taste of stuff he has.
A bit of a tangent, but did you feel like this movie was like trying to teach you about the American presidents for the first 40 minutes?
Yes.
Like
I got some political humor there.
There are so many scenes where like the joke is like they just kind of stand there and they explain like this was actually the sword that William Taft received for his 27th birthday. Yeah. they do that over and over and over.
Well, and I think that's just it's very much a movie that plays up the humor of the environment. Yeah. So you start off with the White House. That means we're gonna get some political jokes and presidential jokes, some artifact type jokes.
That was political though. It was mostly just like fun president facts.
Yeah. Put the blindfold on Lincoln. I think so. The story was, it did lead you kind of by the nose through a series of conflicts that it created itself. But I think what mostly drew me in about this movie were the characters. I love the energy and dynamic and the banter between each character. It's just so much fun.
I like the energy of some of the characters. Like Little Rock comes across as really flat and even less interesting than she was in the first movie. I'd argue because she just kind of has a personality of rebellious teen in this movie.
Not hard to play.
I think is underselling her character in general. But
and I don't know if that's if that's because of the fact that this actress hasn't been in like a ton of films and might not be the strongest actor or actress, and I think maybe part of that is why they structured her character in the story to sort of have a smaller part, not do as much with, because maybe they felt like it wouldn't work.
Maybe.
And I don't know how true that is, but it's sort of I got that vibe a bit.
Was this Little Rock character the same actress from the previous movie, or is this a completely different?
Yeah, same. Breslin, yeah.
They waited for her to grow up, I think.
Oh, okay. Oh, jeez.
Not to get too Berkeley on you, but I felt like most of the female characters in the movie were really underwritten, and generally were kind of written with the classic female problem of I must talk about my love interest and nothing else.
Yeah, it was very much not... It was kind of tired themes at this point, and very old school character development in that sense. It wasn't really trying to do anything different there. No,
right. They did. I mean, Madison, Little Rock, and Nevada. They were exactly as Nick described. Wichita, still remained fiercely and strongly independent, but she was ultimately conflicted with.
Every single line she had was about talking about her boyfriend and how she didn't want to get married in their relationship. Yeah. She really had nothing to work with.
It was very old tropes that you're seeing, like relationship dynamic wise between this male figure and the female, and the sort of the power sort of structure there. So, and that was a little frustrating to see, actually, especially in 2019.
The upside is that Madison at least does have a lot of stuff where she talks about things other than her relationship, and she generally is just kind of played up as the ultra optimist in the zombie apocalypse, which it's a tired character, and it's a character where that the joke is, oh, she's dumb,
right.
But she at least talks about something that's not her boyfriend.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. And I don't know if it's a factor they're trying to keep it in the world ended in 2009, so we're going with the same sort of funny thing, and she is often there for the comedic relief, and I do love. I'll just say it now because we're talking about her. The Lyft Uber joke, kind of easy almost, but still
it's
for that movie was still, I think, actually fairly above the level of most of the jokes in the movie.
That's fair.
And I did like that a bit.
Speaking of Uber, let's dovetail that into sponsors. Because this movie had so much paid sponsorship in it.
So did the original.
Absolutely.
Yes. Keeping up with the Mountain Dew. We've got the Mountain Dew. We've got the even the Thomas Middleditch's character, like, I stay away from name brands, like, with, like, the Ziploc bags.
I'm surprised they didn't have the Twinkies thing carry over. Like, I can't imagine they didn't get offers.
That is a good point. That is one surprising throwback that they actually did not make. I don't know why I'm surprised they did not do that.
They also did, like, a weird kind of fake Chekhov's gun thing. Like, not the actual Chekhov's gun, which was Elvis's gun, but when they had talked about, like, the clown thing and brought that joke again, like, I hate clowns, and that they never showed a clown again.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And then they also had a fun joke of, like, every time he wants to get a new car, it's back to the minivan.
Until he destroyed it with a hand grenade.
My bags were in there.
No, they weren't.
But I like that brick. That was a fun brick joke. I appreciated that one at least. Because it was one that was set up all the way back in the beginning of the movie when he just doesn't load her bags. And she doesn't realize it the entire time. Yes. Even when she got completely cut off from the group, she's still concerned about her bags.
Yep. So effects. Want to talk a little more about some of those?
I think
I think there's one particular mistake, which is when they're in that mall they're in. That was not a set they had to build for that one. That is just a mall that is abandoned and looks like that. I recognized a lot of shots from there. That is a cool mall to go around if you can ever get a chance to go in that mall. I know which mall that is, but I would have to look it up and find out exactly which one.
Where'd they film it? Georgia or LA or California?
I want to say
something else.
Probably filmed in Georgia, based on the scenery.
I didn't say we should stick around for the end of the end credits.
Yeah, we should have checked. Yeah.
But yeah, no, there are some great scenes. Like they do a good job. I feel like in a lot. You have some of the White House stuff. You have the mall scene. You even have this sort of like Babylon place, though maybe that's not as good.
I think that's the only set they had to actually.
They have some good sets, yeah.
There are some really good sets.
Good sets, yeah.
There's the occasional set piece that's kind of fun visually, even if like doesn't do anything in the movie. Like when they set the fire trap, they set up all the effort of doing all the fire stuff. Some of that stuff does look pretty neat as far as like a physical effect.
Yeah. I feel like as we're talking about this, I definitely think that is a strength of the movie, and kind of pivoting to how the film was shot. A lot of great shots in this movie. We have some tracking shots that we talked about briefly in the American Recut. I like particularly the scene, I think the longest tracking shot that I noticed at least, where they're in the White House still and they're walking. It was Woody Harrelson and Jesse Eisenberg's character like walking, talking, and then you have sort of the scene where they run into Wichita and the new girlfriend, and that's a good tracking scene. Not very complicated per se, but it's nice that they kept it going for a while.
They do have some pretty good shots in this movie for sure. Yeah, I think that there's been some money thrown at this movie for sure, which might be part of why it feels such a safe movie. Is because there's a lot of money here. They don't want to screw it up by having a poor joke.
Right.
Even if they kind of ride this train of like Woody Harrelson being like violently anti-hippie a little bit weirdly long. But it's also a pretty good gag, though. So
it is, yeah. But going back to effects, I mean, all the effects were pretty cut and paste from the previous movie. There were some tacky effects here and there, like the Leaning Tower of Pisa, but
that was so tacky. I hated that. That was cartoony to the point that it hurt.
Like I said, but it's tacky, but the movie knew it was tacky, so
I feel like the movie knew it was tacky, but they still included these like kill of the year things, which neither of them were. They were such lame jokes.
You know what? I don't know. I actually like that. I actually like the whole kill of the year. That was from the originally the kill of the week thing, and getting a little bit meta as he talks about those things to you and sort of the audience. And I think it fits along with the movie. It's again, I didn't expect much from this movie, and sort of that playing on the ridiculous.
Right.
I feel like that's what they were trying to go for there, and maybe it is tacky, so to speak. But I feel like it is right in their wheelhouse of this is a ridiculous. We're not trying to be realistic. Don't think about where we're getting gasoline from. There's no recoil on any of the guns. Like, don't think too deep of it. We're just sort of having fun and not really living in not really going into the extremes of what happens in a zombie apocalypse, but just sort of like playing up. And I don't know. You can go back to does that work? But I feel like that's the Zombieland model at this point.
There's that to an extent, because they kind of want their cake and eat it too, because a lot of the problems in conflicts in the movie are set up by the realistic parts of this one. Like, you can't have a comedy where you don't have weapons in a zombie apocalypse. That wouldn't make sense.
No, it doesn't.
You'd have to live in a freezer if you lived in the mall. We only get to have certain cars that have batteries in them, and then they also want to say, "Oh, we can also use a car jet to tip the Leaning Tower of Pisa."
Yeah.
Like, you can go cartoony if you want to, but kind of don't also drag in like reality when you have to. Like, don't ping pong between the two. It feels jarring.
I agree with you I do agree with you, but I think that this movie for the most part does stay away from a lot of the reality sort of thing. I don't know. It is a little jarring, but I do feel for the most part they do stick to mostly like, hey, this is the point of this is sort of ridiculous.
No, right. Tom said it appropriately. Like, don't ask where we got the gas from or the bullets from. We just find them as we go along, or we don't ever run out of it.
I do want to jump into your opinion on the pop culture references, because there's a lot of pop culture references. I never laughed at them. I generally just don't like pop culture references as a rule, and a lot of the pop culture references in this one weren't just over the top, but they're also not funny to me.
It's a tired recurring gag that you see a lot in a lot of comedic movies. I'll give you that.
They played up like the Homer zombies a lot, which okay, and then like they mentioned the Hawking zombies, and then we never see a Hawking zombie.
No, they try to throw out. They do call it out when they're on the in the RV park and they have the RV on top. It's like Hawking.
So they shoot them anyway, so
but
it's fine.
It's not like it's not a. I would say yes. I mean, I am also not a fan of pop culture references, and I do think that this is another thing that they did a bit in the original movie that they're trying to do again. But it's a lot. I think it's a lot more in this movie, and it's a bit much. But it's again,
it is sort within of like their wheelhouse.
It's sort of comedic, like not trying to take things very. You see that a lot, and I don't think it's right, but you do see that a lot in these, especially these modern comedic movies. I don't know. Maybe it's been consistent if we go back to an older movie, but I do feel there's a ton of pop culture references for very current things, and I always wonder, I don't think this is going to age very well.
It never does. It never does. Like, but yeah, for me though, the pop culture references were too many. It got in the way to the point where I was rolling my eyes at this movie and just kind of started feeling like, this is fucking idiocracy.
Yeah.
We got the hit movie.
Yeah, and I do feel a lot of that eye rolling if you watch the first one, because I was watching the first one the other day and I was like, oh my gosh, this is what I like. It's one of those where you rewatch these movies that you watched as a teen or a kid, and you're like, this is not like I remember. I think I've changed as a person. Oh, no. This is when as a teenager, this was pretty funny and stupid, but now I'm like, this is just kind of stupid.
Right. It's like every dumb comedy. The only thing, the benefit of the first Zombieland, like Nick was saying, it struck while the iron was hot. There was a huge zombie binge in 2014, and this was like the first one to ever do a satire of
Hasn't it been like 10 years?
It has been, yes.
2009.
Oh, wow. I'm not with the times.
Alright. But do we have anything else in particular we want to go on with this movie, or do we want to move on to our final statements?
I'm out. How about you, Tom?
No, let's move on.
Alright, final statements then. Who would like to start?
I can.
Yeah, go for it, Tom.
I think overall, as I said in the American Recut, this is a movie that is essentially playing many of the same notes as the first movie. And if you like that movie, or if you go into this movie expecting much the same, I think you'll be reasonably satisfied. This isn't a movie that tries to do new things. This isn't a movie that tries to really make you think about anything that's happening. It's sort of just, again, more of the same fun zombie apocalypse world with this quirky twist and characters, and oh boy, like they just want to find like their home and be at rest, peace in a crazy world, and that's what you get. So I think if you go in with that sort of mindset, I think you will be okay with this movie. If that doesn't sound good to you, if you didn't like the first movie, if you're looking for something more, you're not going to be happy. That's my summary of my thoughts.
Yeah. Me next then. So, essentially, the first movie this movie didn't have the same feel as the first movie. The story was generic. The effects were the same. the only thing I enjoyed about this movie were the characters. You know, I enjoy the energy and dialogue between the characters. It's great. So if you want to see those characters back in action again, go see it. But beyond that, it's a sequel, and it has a bit of a corporate feel to it. So, you know, take it or leave it.
Yeah, man, I've been negative on this movie the whole time, and I'm going to have to keep that up. I generally found that the returning characters didn't have much of a motivation to do anything. They were kind of just being pushed along by the plot, which kind of makes them feel really tired and static. Most of the jokes in this movie, a lot of them are very pop culture heavy, or rely on, like, you know, knowing who Elvis is, learning presidential facts, and generally they kind of fall flat for 90% of the jokes. There's a few jokes here and there that work, but they're either too short or they kind of trip over themselves at some point during the joke. And the story itself is just laughably sad. A lot of the new characters that get introduced are good enough to where it doesn't feel like they're shoehorned in or like kind of awkward, like in John Wick 3 with the characters who are clearly there because they're celebrity names.
Good point.
So I think that I wouldn't recommend this movie because just the jokes don't quite land right for a movie that's this kind of shallow. But that's my take.
All right, well, thanks everybody.
Yeah, thank you.
Enjoy us next week for Jojo Rabbit.
Jojo!